Hello everyone. Have you ever noticed how in Plants vs. Zombies the plants seem to be evolving over time? No? Well, I wouldn't blame you. It's not made 100% clear, but if you actually pay attention, you'll see that it's there. Let's start with the one that started it all. Plants vs. Zombies 1. In this game, plants can only be planted on grass tiles. Water requires lily pads to plant on them, and, most importantly for today's theory, roof tiles require flower pots to be planted on. Seriously, remember this for later. It's very important. That's really everything worth knowing from the first game, so now let's move on to the second game. Unlike the first game, plants don't need anything special to be planted on things that aren't grass, and the game will let you know that. Ancient Egypt, Pirate Seas, Far Future, Lost City, Neon Mixtape Tour, and many more worlds have tiles that, by all accounts, should not be able to be planted on, and yet they all most definitely can, implying that the plants are evolving to be able to live outside of dirt and grass. There's also the whole thing of gravestones being able to be destroyed by all attacking plants, unlike the first game where most plants just straight up ignored them. This, at least to me, implies that the plants have evolved enough to be able to destroy objects that they otherwise couldn't. Now, some of you might be looking at all this and saying, oh, well, it's a sequel. Of course they'll expand on old game mechanics. And you're right. But, if you look at old concept art for Plants vs. Zombies 2, you'll see that, at one point, flower pots were planned for the game. But they had a weird upgrade system to them, and they were scrapped because it was too tiring. Now, you might think that because this was considered at one point, it disproves my theory. However, while I have no evidence for this, it's still possible that the lack of flower pots could have inspired this hidden story. Which brings me to the next entry in my proposed timeline, Plants vs. Zombies Heroes. Okay, now I know there's a very commonly believed theory that Plants vs. Zombies 2 caused a timeline split, resulting in the tower defense games, shooter games, and Heroes to all branch off into different timelines. However, to my knowledge, there's actually nothing contradicting the idea of all these games taking place in the same timeline, so I'm going to be rolling with this idea. The comics are definitely their own separate universe, though, and I will be ignoring them for this video, so sorry, comic fans. That includes myself. Anyway, about Heroes. In the intro cutscene, we see how Dr. Zomboss's Herotron turns plants into heroes. Despite this, we actually see many plants remain unaffected by the Herotron's malfunction. This is where I believe the evolution gets affected a bit. There's really no other way to segue over, so now let's talk about Heroes' relation to the Garden Warfare games. For starters, not only do many characters appear in both Heroes and the shooter games, but the more tower defense level plants can be planted in pretty much the same way they would in any other game. Heck, they even need flower pots for some reason. Probably just a visual indicator for players. However, what I believe Garden Warfare is best known for are the playable plants. Ones who are fully mobile and can walk to literally anywhere, their only limitation being the size of the maps they're on. I believe these plants were created after the Herotron's malfunction. It's possible the leftover radiation from the blast evolved some of the nearby plants a bit faster than normal, resulting in plants that aren't quite heroes, but do have unique abilities of their own. And eventually, many more plants would follow suit, resulting in the many plants that are playable in Battle for Neighborville. Sorry. I mean, just look at this roster compared to the 4 games, the 4 from the first Garden Warfare. It's quite the increase. So, before we wrap things up, I did want to mention Plants vs. Zombies 3 real quick. I do eventually want to add this game to my timeline, but as it stands right now, it's still in development hell, and I don't want to make any assumptions about the game before its official release. So I've decided to ignore it for this video. So, there you have it. Over time, the plants in the Plants vs. Zombies series have evolved from only being able to be planted on dirt and lily pads to being fully mobile. But why? Why are the plants like this? Why are the plants able to evolve like this in the first place? What did Crazy Dave or Bloomadoom Seed Co. or whoever made these plants to do to them that makes them evolve? I don't know, maybe Crazy Dave worked for Boom and Doom. Whatever, just why? Well, I have a theory. Obviously, otherwise I wouldn't be making this video. Alright, I know this might sound a bit out there, but hear me out. I think there are human brains inside the plants. Now, I'll admit, I don't have a lot of evidence for this, but just consider this. If you actually pay attention to how the plants are evolving, you'll notice that they're evolving to be more human. They have arms and legs, they're able to walk anywhere, and they're clearly more intelligent than they were before. Heck, I'm pretty sure they even developed their own language. And there was even a whole comic about the plants moving out and having to learn to act more human to survive in the real world. Not only that, but here's something to think about. Why do the zombies have to eat the plants? I mean, obviously they're in the way, and the zombies were never meant to be smart, but they are clearly shown ignoring some plants. Take, for example, potato mine and spikeweed. Well, what if it's because they know there's brains in there and are merely getting an appetizer before the main course? I mean, it wouldn't explain why they do ignore some plants, but I think it's also just there to show that they can, and they just choose not to for the most part. But anyway, while we're on this topic, there is one plant I wanted to mention that the zombies don't ignore. The flower pot. Yeah, remember when I told you to remember them for later? Well, now's when it finally pays off. Take a look at its design. And I mean a really good look at it. Notice anything? That's right. There's a face on the terracotta. Also consider this. Mushrooms are considered as plants in this series, despite the fact that mushrooms and fungi in real life just aren't. Well, under this human brains interpretation, a plant in the series could be defined as a non-human tower or playable character that helps the player progress through the game in some way. So, plot hole filled. Anyway, with that being said, I think that's really about it. I probably could go into the how or why there's human brains inside Plants vs. Zombies plants, but this theory took way longer than it needed to finally get out, so I may save that for later, depending on how well this video performs. So, thank you everybody for watching. If you couldn't tell, this theory has quite a few holes in it, I think. This is just raw me right now, by the way. No script or anything whatsoever. So, just kind of discussing the theory on my own. That's kind of a funny, dark look at Plants vs. Zombies, but I don't know. When you actually think about it, it's probably not what the developers intended, but still funny to think about nonetheless. I think that's all I got. Thank you everybody for watching. If you like this video, you know what to do. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye!